I just start to tell a story in my head or with the imagery, and I try and see connections between things all the time. So in that sense, although it's not a literal narrative, works will always speak to each other through painting. I remember primary school, I remember art was my favourite subject back then. By the time I went through high school and by the time I was in VCE, I was making sure that I could do it as much as humanly possible. So I had the two subjects. I had art and studio art in year 12. And that was it. There was no question for me that I would pursue it. I didn't think a lot about what that would mean over the long term. I thought about, in almost a romantic and naive way, I just need to be an artist. The legacy of painting behind us is quite extraordinary, and it's enough to make you feel completely insignificant. There is that sense of the skills that people had that perhaps we don't get taught anymore. So you have to see if you can work out how they've, what technique they've used. I guess that's one of the things that I really get a lot of inspiration from. But having said that, contemporary art has another way of providing, a kind of spark of ideas. I had entered the Doug Moran National Portrait Prize a couple of times. I think in my mind it wasn't quite as well known, and I think you just think perhaps slightly less competitive because of that. The Archibald is a lot better known across the board by everyone, and particularly people who don't take a huge interest in art. That's the one thing that they know. So it becomes a broad appeal, and if you've got a work that is travelling or touring for a year and people are looking at it every day, it's really good exposure so that the next time you have an exhibition, you're going to have a bigger audience or more people who know who you are and what you're doing. I tend to work within different themes, so if there's a theme I'm trying to get my teeth into, I will explore imagery around that, and then just through a process, things sort of come into play. So the last body of work that I had was the first time that I'd used collage, which was quite foreign to me as a process. I'd normally worked with imagery that was pretty much, was it what it was, so that the border would finish the painting. So if it was something like a figure, they might be cropped, so it's just head and shoulders and then whatever's around that. I wasn't wanting to introduce elements that took away from sort of natural figuration, but I was also frustrated by not being able to place enough of an idea or a narrative within one picture. So within a lot of the bodies of works that I've completed, I feel that the whole exhibition might make sense, and the images are speaking to each other or building a narrative. But when you single one out or take it out of the exhibition, usually it has something of its own and becomes a little more mysterious. But I think I became a little bit frustrated that I couldn't somehow keep them as a group. It's strange because when you do work full-time as an artist, you keep thinking you're going to have all this extra time and you wonder why you still can't do as much as you would like to. So it becomes very hard then to imagine your life back with a part-time job, because you can barely fit in everything you want to do anyway. I love imagery and I love playing with images and I love the potential of visual imagery in general. And so I enjoy the painting process itself. I need to start early-ish. I need to set everything up so I'm ready to go. And I need to know that there's at least 5 hours ahead of me that will be uninterrupted. And I may paint for, depending on what I'm working on, it might be 4 hours or it might be 8 hours, and there's not much in the way of breaks because I like to work with wet paint. It has to be a day that's as isolated as possible, really. I need to own that time and that space.